We continue in our series, New Jersey's Next Governor Decision 2025, with an in-depth interview with the former president of the New Jersey Senate, a Democratic candidate for governor, Steve Sweeney. Good to see you, Senator.
Steve, it's great to see you again.
You got a question right out of the box. Top two issues, if you were governor in January 2026, top two priorities for you would be?
Transit, obviously, huge problem that, I called for a constitutional dedication of funding in 2020. Now they gave it $1 billion, but they didn't constitutionally dedicate it. So, that means it could be spent other places. And honestly, reforming the budget process, Steve. What we do, the way we do it's wrong. And it would take giving up some authority to the legislature, but it would be worth doing it to come up with a better process so that, we have multi-year budgeting, and we do consensus forecasting, so we don't have these crazy swings in numbers, because the budget is what drives everything. So I would say they're two of the top, but there's a lot of issues here in New Jersey.
And I want to talk about affordability too, but go back to the budget. Talk to us about your view of state funding of public schools, the school funding formula. What's screwed up about it? Because everyone argues it is screwed up, A, and B, more importantly, what would you do to change it?
Steve, it's not screwed up. It might need to be updated. It's not screwed up.
It's not.
No. What happened?
We've had so many Republican legislators come on saying, my district got the shaft. We didn't get enough money there to let go of teachers. Go ahead, Senator.
Now, I'm glad you brought it up. It's BS. They were overfunded for 15 years, these districts. Overfunded. When I say overfunded, they were getting funding for children that weren't in the school. So instead of right-sizing the school district, Steve, like if a school district had 1,000 less kids, they got paid as they had those 1,000 kids. So if you don't have the kids, because the legislature screwed it up. It took me 8 years to fix it. Seriously, it took me 8 years to fix it with S2, which is what they complain about.
Senate Bill number 2, go ahead.
Which means money follows the child. Now, so if you have an extra 1,000 kids in your school, before you didn't get any funding for them. Now you do. And if you have less students, you lose that funding because you don't have the students. And I honestly, a lot of these school districts knew this was coming for years, Steve. And I don't want to lay people off. I think that's not the way to go about this. But you attrition, you right-size the district. So, but here's the thing. We should be doing every 5 years, at least 5 years, a look back to make sure the formula is performing the way it's expected to and intended to. The school funding formula was the first formula that the courts approved that met all the needs in the state. So, but, that was done back during the Corzine administration. And when I was still in the legislature, I was talking about we need to revisit the funding formula to see if something's wrong with it, to make corrections. But the principle, the argument with these school districts, and it's, look, they're Democrat districts that lose funding too.
Both districts, Democrats and Republicans, yeah.
You lose students. I'll pay you for your 1,000 students. I'm not going to pay you for 2,000 when you only have 1,000.
It's an important conversation, and we'll continue with legislators on both sides of the aisle. But affordability. New Jersey, and again, you're in the southern part of the state. You look to represent the entire state. Senator, why, A, is New Jersey so unaffordable for so many? And B, what would you do as governor to change that?
Well, it was Steve, I put on a 2% property tax cap, if you remember.
As Senate President.
As Senate President, when taxes were going up 7 to 9% a year. We need to do government differently. And it's easy to say, and it's very hard to do. But I'll give you an example. In my home county, Gloucester County, we have more shared services than any county in the state. And which means you're bringing the service, but you're providing it cheaper. Now, Gloucester County is the only county in the state that doesn't have any jails. They closed their juvenile, their female, their male. We have prisoners, we send them to places that have empty jail cells. And we're saving, I think, $20 million a year now. So it's looking at government and the way you're doing it and doing it differently. I'm thrilled. We had 3 school districts. I was working on consolidation. We're really working on school consolidation and was able to negotiate with the NJA a bill that they agreed to. 3 school districts in Monmouth County the towns voted to merge their school districts.
What happened?
Nothing. It worked. You know what I mean?
But that's the exception. Sorry for interrupting, Senator. The merging or consolidating of school districts is rare in the state, is it not?
It's rare, but it's starting to happen more often. There's I think 70 or 80 school districts in the state of New Jersey right now studying consolidation. And Steve, what I'm getting to is all of our school districts should be K to 12, pre-K to 12. You have the K to 2, the K to 4, K6, they all need to be K-12 districts, because one of the other problems is, especially when you have the regional high schools, if you have 5 schools sending to a regional high school, they're not teaching the same curriculum. They're not reading out of the same books. I mean, the vast majority of that. So details matter. Details matter a great deal. Now, when we did the school consolidation bill, we worked with the NJEA and they agreed to this bill because, they care about their membership. I mean? I get it. I don't want to
You have a union background. You have a union background. You get it. Yep.
I don't want to see people laid off unnecessarily. But the frustration with the school funding was they knew it was coming and they just never did anything about it. And like at some point you say, well, okay, musical chairs, we pulled the last chair.
Senator, I want to bring up another issue. Just real quick, I hate to say real quick because it's such a complex issue. The issue of abortion. The Supreme Court has done what it has done, the United States Supreme Court, back in the states. New Jersey law is what it is. If you were governor, would you do anything to change the existing law in the state of New Jersey that codifies Roe v. Wade?
Look, we codified, the Supreme Court's decision. I was in the legislature. We codified, passed a bill. But we need to do a constitutional amendment, Steve, because what happens is with legislation, you will know this. What you legislate, you can unlegislate. We need to protect a woman's right to choose. And what we need to do is make sure it's in the Constitution so it can't change.
On the issue of immigration, New Jersey, I'm not going to say like other states, because places like Arizona and California and other places, Texas, they're impacted differently. But there's still an impact here in New Jersey. What, if anything, would you do if you were governor? Again, federal policy is, that's what it has to change. But what, if anything, could and would you do as governor in January of 2026 regarding the immigration crisis?
I'm going to get our federal legislators in a room and start talking about how we fix this. Steve, we can't have an open border. We just can't have everyone pouring in. But there should be a pathway to coming here legitimately and legally. And it really is our federal delegations. And every governor in every state in this country should basically get their federal legislators together and say, knock this off. Unfortunately, Donald Trump, they actually came up with a bill. This. They came up with a bill that was the strongest border bill in history.
In Congress.
And Trump said, I'd rather have the issue. I don't want you to solve it. Well, we got to stop that stuff. I can work bipartisan. I've worked bipartisan my whole career. And the only way you fix big things like this is by working with both sides. We need to recognize that we're never going to get anything done if we're doing what they're doing in Washington. People are frustrated and angry because they're not thinking about us. They're thinking about them. And that's what's wrong.
Senator, I want to ask you, and not everyone knows this, your background, real quick, your background in the labor movement, describe it, and then your connection then to public life, please.
Well, my background is I'm a union iron worker. I didn't go to college. I went right to work. It was, out to work when I was a young guy. I was an iron worker. I worked on buildings, walked with structural steel, worked on bridges. And then I had a daughter born, 2 pounds with Down syndrome, Steve, and it really sobered me up. And I became more mature. I think that's actually when I actually physically really became a man. When I realized that I had a responsibility, and I'm a believer that everyone has a purpose in life. Some people find it, some people don't. My purpose is advocating for people like my daughter Lauren to make sure that she can have the fullest life possible without just what happens now, which is people look at people with disabilities and they just don't think they can do things, and they can.
Lauren, you've talked about Lauren for years now. Lauren, and how old is she right now?
31.
I remember the first time when in a conversation with you, in an interview, you started talking about her. It has had a profound impact on your public and personal life, has it not? She has.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She changed me as a person, but for better, Steve. You don't miss anything. Like we go by, like when my son was supposed to sit up when he was supposed to walk, he walked, talk, he talked. My daughter had to learn all those things. We taught my daughter how to do those things. So what happens, it makes you a better person because you don't take anything for granted.
Former Senate President Steve Sweeney, I thank you so much for joining us as part of our series, New Jersey's Next Governor, Decision 2025. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Steve.
You got it. I would be remiss as a broadcaster and as someone who greatly admired Michael Aaron, who was a mentor to all of us. He was the dean of the State House Press Corps. Everybody knows that. He made a difference. He did it the right way. He interviewed every governor for decades in the state and asked the right questions and followed up when he didn't get a straight answer. He was a great journalist. He was a giant in the world of broadcasting and media, and we need to continue Michael Aaron's legacy. Michael, my friend, my colleague, job well done.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating 30 years in public broadcasting. Funding has been provided by Hackensack Meridian Health, the Turrell Fund, a foundation serving children. Operating Engineers, Local 825. Eastern Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters, New Brunswick Development Corporation. IBEW Local 102. PSCNG. Rowan University. And by these public-spirited organizations, individuals, and associations committed to informing New Jersey citizens about the important issues facing the Garden State. Promotional support provided by NJ.com and by New Jersey Globe.
Life is full of changes. At Hackensack Meridian Medical Group, we're ready for them. If you have a cold or chronic illness, our 5-star doctors can treat any ailment. Whether you're starting recess or retirement, we're prepared with pediatric and adult specialists. And if you just moved here, we are in your neighborhood. You now have access to a health team 1,000 strong. So no matter what or when, we're ready.